There we go. Sorry. Okay. Now, my name's Hiram McMeekin. My pronouns are he, we, him, and his. And I currently serve in a dual capacity as the Dean of College Access Services at Central Carolina Community College, and then also as the Director of Equity and Pathways under our executive director in the leadership of Dolores Ali. And I'll allow her to, if she wants to share anything really quick.
I will share quickly and want to say thank everyone for their patience. Technology can be a little bit wonky sometimes, but just, working with your colleagues and getting through it, still great things happen. So I want to say good morning and welcome to the Student Success Center's 5th and final workshop of the Guided Pathways Series 100, which is also known as GPS 100. I do appreciate the opportunity to bring greetings to you all. And I just want to share quickly a quote from fashion director Eva Chenna, where she says, "My advice for young people is study what you love and intern for what you want to do." And I think that aligns nicely to what we're about to hear from Dr. Christine Harrington by making sure as to what we're teaching in the classroom is also aligned to what students are getting when they do a work-based learning opportunity. But just to wrap up quickly, I am honored to be here today and to be with the other colleges. Hopefully we have representation from all 58 community colleges. Thank you, Dr. Christine Harrington, for your patience and for joining us. And Jairo, thank you for your leadership in pulling together the GPS 100 series. And thank you to Gracie and the rest of the system office staff that has helped us to pull together the GPS 100 series to be where we are today. So Jairo, I'll turn it over to you and Dr. Christine Harrington and say good morning.
Okay. So we're going to change it up just slightly. Normally we do the GPS 100. It's usually an hour, 45 minutes to an hour of a national expert, talking about something related to our pillars and our guided pathways. Because of all the things, we're going to take out our breakout time. And I know that sometimes that's a big thing for folks. I want her to have the full time because we have this until 10:40 to be able to share everything that she has. And, any questions you have, please feel free to use them in the chat. And then that way, even if she can't get to them, we'll make sure that we can try to get some answers to them before that. One last plug, two last plugs. One is Dr. Harrington. I'm a huge fan of her work, me and my wife, and we've mentioned her a couple of times at dinner conversations, as wild as that sounds, that's what we do. And so just to show you, if you get a chance, I don't get any royalties and she has not asked me to do this, but if you can see this book, I don't know if you can see it or not, Keeping Us Engaged, highly recommend that one. And especially as it pertains to our guided pathways work, Engaging Faculty and Guided Pathways. So these are two of her books that I really love. Also love her on dynamic syllabus. And I just really appreciate her brain and everything that she does and stands for and works for. So we were really excited to get her to come and speak with us. And so again, if you enjoy this, pick up the books. I promise it'll be worth your time. It's those very engaging, even the Keeping Us Engaged. I'm really impressed with that because she allows students to voice, their experiences within the book and then has it backed by the research. And it's just that combination itself is just amazing and how she was able to do that. And then also at the end of every chapter, she has questions for you to be able to do some self-reflection. So again, completely biased, really big fan moment for me just to, be in the same space with her, just be able to introduce her. I would go through her bio, but we're going to cut that right now just so she could jump to it. Okay, so Dr. Harrington, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, oh my God, that was probably the best welcome I have ever had intro. So thank you, Jairo. I'm just so humbled really, and really just kind of amazed. So thank you so much for that wonderfully warm welcome. And I want to thank Dolores and Gracie and Jairo for their leadership and for inviting me. I'm also honored to be a part of this GPS 100 series with these other amazing rock stars in the field. So I'm really thrilled to be a part of this dialogue and conversation, and just incredibly honored to be a part of your journey as you strive to improve your outcomes, especially with an equity lens and an industry lens. So that's what we'll be doing today. Let me share with you, I know that we're not going to have our breakout opportunity, but Jairo and Dolores, if you end up rescheduling and you want me to come back for a half-hour dialogue or whatever it turns out to be, I'm happy to do that. I'm also very accessible if you want to email me any questions. So feel free. I don't want you to feel shortchanged because of our technology issues in the beginning of today. So I'm happy to still, continue the dialogue beyond our hour or so that we have today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully it's not messy. It might have all that email stuff there. Yeah, let's get over here. Here we go. All right, perfect. My website here has all of the PowerPoint slides, but I also did share them with the North Carolina Student Success Center team, so they can share them as well. But if you want to access them on the website, there's a lot of other resources that you may find helpful there. So there's a lot of my presentations and blogs and things of that nature that are just up and freely available for your use. I'll just share really briefly some of my background, just so you have the context for what I'm bringing to the table. My background is all in the community college sector, with the exception of my most recent position, which is still community sector focused, although I'm at a university. So I have worked at Middlesex College most of my career, first in student affairs and then on the academic side of the house. And I directed our teaching and learning center and also psychology faculty there. Then I had the great pleasure and honor to work in the same capacity that your wonderful Dolores works in at the state level in North Carolina. I got to do that work in New Jersey for a couple of years. We had a rotating position, so I got to serve in that capacity for 2 years. Amazing experience. And now I'm at New Jersey City University, where I launched and coordinate and teach in a doctoral program. It's a newly established EDD and community college leadership. So quick plug, if anyone's interested in learning more about that program, we actually have an information session coming up next week. So I can put that in the chat towards the end of today, or just email me. That's a great way to get in touch with me also. And I'm happy to send you information on that, because we're currently accepting applications for cohort 4 that starts this summer. Okay, so now let's get to the meat of it today. So we're going to talk about creating meaningful and culturally affirming assignments that align with industry expectations. So I'd like to spend the first couple of minutes just asking you to introduce yourself in the chat. Can you please share your name, your preferred pronouns, and maybe what subject you're teaching? If there's something you want to get out of today's session, that would be great to see. Also, just so I can get a sense of who is in the audience and what you're looking for. And I'll give you a heads up. I'll be using a lot of the chat today since we won't have time for the breakout session. Hey, Chantel, look at the first one there. Love it, love it. Chantel's one of our affiliate faculty in our doctoral program. So, and one of our shining stars at that. And I saw actually, Chantel's college get all kinds of shout outs. I think it was on Inside Higher Ed or CC Daily. I can't remember which one, but great job with all that work that you're doing over there. Terrific. Okay, so I'm seeing some advertising design. Tori, I love it. Always looking for something new and fresh, right? And I think you're going to walk away with that for sure. And you also may walk away feeling validated around some of the things that you're doing. So I'm big on new and fresh, but I'm also big on validating and making sure that we continue down paths that you're already doing really well. So I want to honor the work that you've already done, but I'm always going to push and challenge you to do better, because I know we can. None of us are perfect, and every day we can strive to be better than who we were yesterday. So that's kind of our focus, I think, today. So I'm seeing lots of different areas. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. So we have some folks in education and English, work-based learning, learn all you can, new to the position. I love it. That's terrific. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay. Oh, I got another fan in the house. Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate that. That's fun. Engineering, math, all different disciplines. This is terrific. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all this. I wish we were live and in person so I can get to know you a little bit better, but I do hope that you all stay in touch and we can communicate beyond today. All right, so let's go ahead and I'll share. This is my overview of what I'm planning to cover in the next hour or so. We're going to talk about positionality as it relates to teaching. We're going to briefly just touch upon where all this fits in the backward design process. And then this list of things such as getting to know your students, choosing the type of assignment, choice, structure, collaboration, scaffolding are all key elements of how we can do better in terms of the assignments we create for our students to ensure that they're meaningful, engaging, culturally affirming, and meeting the expectations of our industry partners. So that's kind of our role and what we're planning to do today. So let's begin by talking about positionality. Many of you have probably heard of positionality more so in terms of research. Qualitative researchers, for instance, especially need to really think about who they are, what their biases are, what the lenses that they're bringing to the research situation, because that impacts the kinds of questions they ask, how they conduct their research, and how they interpret the data. Well, we don't talk about this quite as much in terms of teaching, and I'm advocating that we do more of this. So if we're going to talk about something related to culturally affirming assignments, we need to begin by looking in at our own identities, our values, our experiences, and how that impacts us as instructors. So this is a really key element that we won't have time to do a deep dive on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to post some questions. And again, you have access to all of the handouts afterwards to go back and do some additional reflecting. And it may be part of what you do during that follow-up dialogue, when you continue to meet to discuss this. So I recently had an opinion piece published in the Inside Higher Ed. This was published back in January of this year. And pieces of it are shared here with you. What I'm encouraging faculty to do is to think about what identities they connect to and are salient to who they are, and how does that impact you as an instructor. Thinking about your roles, and how do these either connect or not connect with the roles and the identities of your students. What about the training and experiences you have? How have they shaped who you are? How might they positively or negatively impact marginalized populations in your classes today? If you think about all these beliefs and the values and the characteristics, you can think about how they impact your actions as an instructor, especially around assignments. So if you're like most faculty, I am a faculty member currently, and that is my primary role. That is core to who I am as in terms of my professional identity. Even when I was in the leadership role at the state, I always first identified myself as a faculty member because that's who I am. And when I think about talking to all of these other faculty members, I go across the nation a lot. We're all pretty passionate about the assignments we give. So when we create an assignment, we often think there's value in it. Otherwise, why would we be offering it? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm going to go out there on a limb and say, get a little rigid or overzealous about our assignments and feel like it is the best thing ever. And you could never possibly not have that assignment within that course structure. So that is something that many of us share as faculty members. And I'm sure if you think about your own assignments, there's going to be some that you're thinking, I would never part with no matter what Christine Harrington says or anyone else. This is one that's really key. And it might be. But what I am going to ask you to do is for you to think about, where did that come from? Why do you so strongly believe that? Think about the why and the how of where you got to where you are in terms of that assignment. And is it still relevant and needed for today's students? So I'm going to be asking you a lot of challenging questions. These are just some of them. And quite honestly, we could spend the entire time just on positionality, but I know you came for a lot more than just that. I just want to anchor us in this reflective exercise in the beginning, because our actions in the classroom matter. And they make a tremendous difference in terms of our students and their success. And they can especially impact different groups of students differently. So Black students, Latinx students, white students, Asian students, Native American students, students identifying from multiple races, different cultures. All of these students in our classrooms are going to be impacted by the choices that we make. And if we're not reflective around that, we're then creating structures, and assignments are the biggest one that let students know whether or not they belong and whether or not this is something they can do. Because let's face it, many of our students have imposter syndrome, may not be, fully believing in their ability to do college, are uncertain about the path that they're taking. So these questions, I think, are really critical. There certainly, I'm not the only person talking about this. And actually, I was really inspired by reading this article by Tapia Fusiler. Again, this was a blog that was out there in the public websites, and really good questions here. So what are my beliefs about assessing learning? How should students feel in my classroom? That's not a question we always ask ourselves as faculty. How are equitable and inclusive learning environments created and sustained? In what ways do my privileged identities take up space? How can I account for that? And here's a really tough one, but how might I be perpetuating existing structures of oppression in the classroom? And how can I disrupt this? No matter what your identities, if you identify as a faculty member, if that's a part of who you are walking in with some point of privilege in the classroom. And you have that privilege that you get to use. You get to decide what kinds of assignments you're going to be giving and how you help and support students or not related to those assignments, and how you provide feedback on those assignments once they're completed. That is such a significant part of the student learning and just overall experience in college. Okay, so that's kind of just anchoring us in positionality. I know that was a lot to take in. I certainly don't expect that you've answered all those questions for yourself, but hopefully I got the juices flowing for you and you're starting to think about how they may, how your beliefs and values and identities may be impacting this process. So much so that you're willing to be open to the ideas that I'm going to share with you. And some of these ideas are coming from the research. Some of them are coming from professionals in the field. Some of them are coming from students themselves. So there's a lot of different data points that I've pulled from in order to pull today's presentation together. Many of you are probably familiar with backward design. In fact, most of us have probably not been trained on it, but hopefully you've heard about it along the way. And it's unfortunate that so many of us are not necessarily given a lot of structure and support about how to teach well. I know I had nothing, in terms of backward design when I walked into the classroom. I'm like, what is that? I didn't know, in the beginning. I had to learn on the job, right? Which is what many of our students have to do also. But backwards design basically means you design with the end in mind. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then, I know as faculty, we like to go to the third part teaching, but you can't get there yet. What evidence would you need? And those are the assignments or assessment tools that you use in your classroom to show that students accomplish those learning outcomes. And then finally, once you've decided on that, then you can start thinking about what do I need to do in order to help students be successful on those assignments and assessments, because they're the ones that are demonstrating achievement of those learning outcomes. So our focus today is on part 2 of the backward design model. It's obviously making an assumption that you have good, strong learning outcomes, but you may need to go and revisit those because maybe your learning outcomes are not industry connected as well as they should be. Maybe they are anchored in kind of some traditional academic beliefs that may not be serving students of today and tomorrow. So I do encourage you to still go back to step 1. And to also, obviously lean on your support systems and all in this state on helping you develop some additional teaching strategies to help you get there. All right, we're going to begin with defining terms, and this is the interactive part. So get ready to get your fingers going for the chat.
Always on Zoom meeting, but
oh, somebody's got a mute over there. I think, okay, great, thanks. What makes an assignment meaningful? Oh, I love it. I see the Success Center has already got the backward design course available for you. So if you're not super familiar with it, go ahead and take advantage of that. But if you can put in the chat, what do you think makes an assignment meaningful?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm seeing some really great responses come in through the chat. Some themes that I'm kind of catching are relevance, connections to either current life, or future goals, relatable, but those aha moments, of really kind of discovering. I like that too, Kirsten. So yes, and is the knowledge necessary to perform whatever is required? So like every one of us wants to make sure that what we do matters and has meaning. So in order to do that, we definitely need that relevance. I think that's a key theme. So here's how I'm, kind of thinking about meaningful assignments. In order to have meaningful assignments, we need to make sure we know who our students are, or we won't know if it has real world value for them, right? We could certainly know about careers and all, but we need to know what goals do they have? What careers are they planning to head into? What are their pathways? So getting to know our students is going to be a critical component, but that real world value, I think, is one of the essential elements. All right, next up, chat time again. What does culturally affirming mean? So if you're creating an assignment that's culturally affirming, what does that mean to you? Excellent answer. Oh my gosh. I love so many of these responses. They're really great. Being able to see themselves, right? Acknowledging and valuing the history of all people, to affirm that they matter. I love that one. When I see my identities are viewed from an asset-based lens, really important. Excellent. Terrific. You guys have such great responses. I so appreciate you engaging with me on the chat. Here is one definition. This is not, I'm not professing to share with you the, perfect definition. I think there's plenty of really good ones and some really good responses that you had in your chat too. But here's one that may kind of resonate with you a bit. Affirming education means that one's background, culture, and experiences are viewed with high regard and esteem. Moreover, the educational process is committed to the positive self-concept and racial identity development of students by honoring the legacy and historical and contemporary contributions of their racial groups. It seems like you folks really crafted that yourself in the chat. Is really all those elements in this definition I really do see in the chat. So that is awesome. Now, Singer Freeman identified several ways that we can ensure we have a culturally affirming assignment. First, there needs to be strong alignment. And I think some of you talked about that even with the meaningful chat. It has to be alignment between the assignment and the learning outcome. So it's not some random thing that was pulled out of a hat, but it was an intentional, and carefully designed assignment. That there's clarity, transparency. We're going to talk more about transparency and providing structure related to assignments is an equity-based way to support our students. Because if you don't add those details, we're leaving people out of the conversation. And those who can infer because of their social capital and perhaps networks in their system that they know how to kind of connect the dots, we're leaving that to chance for some students, and it may not happen. So clarity is going to be important in culturally affirming assignments. Scaffolding students, being able to support students. Even in my doctoral program, our doctoral program is about developing leaders at all levels. We are not expecting folks to walk in as academics, and we're not even expecting them to walk out as academics either. We expect them to be amazing leaders, but some of them walk in I haven't written in an academic way in a long time. Well, that's fine. We're going to help and support you. Like the scaffolds have to be there, those checkpoints. We need to do that for all students, not just community college students. Everyone who's jumping on a new adventure needs that support. Listen, if you want to go teach me how to play golf or something, I don't know how to do any of those sports things. Like that's not an area of expertise of mine. It doesn't matter if I have a PhD in psychology. Go put me out on you pick any sport arena, put me on any of those. I'm going to need a lot of scaffolding and support. So we need to do that for students as well. We want to think about our assessment environment, and I'm going to challenge you to think beyond the exams because there's a lot. Exams are just fraught with stereotype threat, negatively impacting the performance, and I'll share some data and all. So, heading more towards more innovative kinds of assessments that allow students to shine and kind of be that strength-based model is going to be really important. And then of course we want to make sure there's inclusive content and that there's varied perspectives represented. I'll just give you one more quick example that I'm using currently with doctoral students in our dissertation. Instead of doing a traditional lit review where students they do have to go into the databases and get information, but that's not the only place. We don't start and stop there. That's one data point. And it is not more valuable than the other data points that we use, which are public scholarship. So articles on LinkedIn, Inside Higher Ed, opinion pieces, all of that is definitely important. And practitioner perspectives, talking to people who are actually doing the work and can share their expertise. And you're going to see in a moment how important that is through a research study. So I'll share that with you in just a moment. Okay, now the third piece that we're going to talk about today is making sure that it's connected to what industry partners are expecting. So can you please jump into the chat and say what kinds of skills or knowledge do you think industry partners are looking for? So if you can put that in, that would be great. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of really good responses. I'm going to call these essential skills. I saw a couple of you call them soft skills or people skills. I don't like the word soft. I know it's the truth, people know what that means, but I don't like it because it feels very less than to me. And I think they're really essential. So I have shifted my language to essential skills. I have decided I'm not partaking anymore in the soft skill conversation, essential skills, but you all identified some really essential skills. So we need to consider both those essential skills that are needed in most careers, things like you talked about, critical thinking, communication, problem solving, teamwork, all of those are essential skills that are needed in almost, not every, but in a lot of careers. And then of course, we also need to think about what skills are needed in our specific industry. So, and I'll share an example from my background, psychology, in a moment. But whatever it is, that you're teaching and your students are planning to go into, they're going to need different kinds of skill sets. So yes, we all need to focus on those essential skills, but our curriculum and our courses also need to build what is often called those technical skills of the discipline. All right, so let's take a look at, this study was done by Head in 2012. And what I like about it, what we're doing right now is shifting to essential skills. One of the essential skills is information literacy. So you can hear from employers that they need people who can gather and evaluate information from a variety of sources. So many employers are asking their employees to go and find information and bring it back and package it in some way. And that information that they're going to ask you to find is not just from the library databases, which is what we often emphasize in higher ed. So in our classrooms, sometimes we say you only can use that data source. And I'm going to share some reasons why that's not a good idea. I think it's important to help students develop research skills and an appreciation for data that comes from there, but it shouldn't be the exclusively used kind of data source. And employers want data from databases, but internet, we always like, oh, Google, it's not a good idea. Students shouldn't just Google. Well, actually, that's exactly what they're going to do when they go into the world of work. Many of these folks won't even have access to a library database. If you're not associated with a college, you don't even get that access. So it is really important to help students navigate the world of the web and all of the information, and be able to critically evaluate the information that is there so they can choose good sources that will give them what they need to solve the problems in front of them. Now, what they did in this study is, had asked alumni, so recent graduates, what are your experiences now that you're in the world of work? What are you needing in terms of information literacy skills and, on the job? And how did we do in college at helping you prepare? So what they had said is there were a couple of challenges they identified. One was that they needed to gather information without much direction. I want to emphasize that, without much direction. So think about it. We want to balance that structure we talked about of giving students kind of a good focus of how to go about doing things. But sometimes we're so structured that we're not helping them develop skills that they would be able to use in an unstructured situation. So our traditional assignments are often like, go find 3 data points from this, kind of journal, and go find this information from this source, 1 book, 2 articles. I mean, these are not uncommon, assignment scenarios, but they're not necessarily giving students what they need. They need to be able to figure out where do I need to go for that information and what's going to give me what I need. The other piece that students said is that they weren't prepared for the social nature of this process. Figuring out who were the credible people to tap into and how to gather data from credible people. Most students are going to tell you that in their educational experience, faculty are not saying go talk to people. They're telling them to go find research, and they're telling them to go find other kinds of data sources. So this exclusive or over-reliance on library sources is not really setting students up for success. If this is going to be one of our industry partner expectations, we need to shift the way in which we help students develop these informational literacy skills. So really important. And if we want to use that diversity lens, the other reason why we don't want to exclusively rely on peer-reviewed journals is they're still quite biased, So this is some fairly recent data, folks, that now, first of all, first caveat that as the first bullet indicates, most journals are not collecting race, ethnicity, gender on their authors. So it's hard to have a good concrete number around this, but the data that is out there seems to suggest that most authors are still white males. Even in 2020, most authors of these peer-reviewed publications are white males. And psychology is a discipline that prides itself on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you look at the last bullet, only 5% of the research in cognitive, developmental, and social psychology was highlighting race, and most of the authors were white. So if we're going to do what some of you talked about in the chat and what we just talked about in terms of being culturally affirming and bringing varied voices and lived experiences and making sure that we're celebrating and honoring all of those who contribute to the field and not just a select few who happen to be white males, then that is doing quite a disservice. I think it's not really pushing our agenda forward. As a psychology faculty member, every theorist we would share was a white male. You go from Freud to Erickson to Vygotsky to, all these folks. It's white male after white male after white male. And I'm not saying we shouldn't mention these folks. They obviously were key figures in the field, but they're not the only ones impacting the field of psychology. So we need to make sure we're diversifying the materials and we're asking students to build their assignments on. So if you're going to try to build that information literacy, we want to ensure that it has that culturally affirming lens, it's relevant, which is going to be more relevant if you're asking them to also tap into people, looking at public scholarship that exists, not just library databases, and being able to put all that together, and utilizing their skills related to that is going to be helpful. So further thinking about industry partners, I'm going to say this was an aha moment for me. This is going back a number of years now, but I was at an APA conference. That's the American Psychological Association. And they have a teaching psychology kind of track at their conference that was really fabulous. And I went to this session, and the presenters were talking about, let's look at where our psychology graduates are going. So when you look at this chart, you can see that only 4% of undergraduates, and this is not community college specific, of undergraduates who declare a major in psychology are going on to get a doctorate in psychology. If you expand that to graduate degree, we're talking 14%. Now, almost half, a little under half, are actually going on to get a graduate degree in something, but most of them, it's not psychology. And over half of them are not going on to get any graduate degree and going directly into the workforce. Now, why is that important? If you look at the psychology curriculum across the nation, this is not, and I think the part of the challenge for community colleges is we're trying to always fit into the four-year school expectations. We want to make sure we have good transferability and all of that, but we have to engage in dialogue because what we are doing is so not right. We have basically tortured 96% of the students who don't plan to go and get a doctorate degree, who aren't going to do that. Because in psychology, what do we emphasize? Research papers. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find psychology classes without research papers and not talking about APA citations and style, right? They're probably never going to do that again after college. Like, this is not a skill that they probably need. But we think it's so important. Like, APA style is all that. We've got to make sure we're doing that. And many psychology programs are going to emphasize some really robust statistical analysis like SPSS. Why are we torturing 96% of our students? We have basically catered to the 4% who are going on to get that doctorate degree. These are good skill sets to help them, and that's great. And I'm not saying we should abandon that and we should not serve that 4% of students at all, but we should not have a curriculum that is designed for them, and then all of the others just have to follow along. Rather, if they're going into the work world, over 50, I think it was 56% of them were, then writing brief reports would be much more effective skill. I don't know about you, but any employer, they don't want to read a 20-page paper. They don't want to do that. Hyro, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, and I've never thought about what you're saying, and I love it. I was a psychology major, and I totally understand what you're saying.
Do you
the thing though is, I wonder,
20-page papers, Hyro, all the time in APA style?
No.
No, right?
No. But that's what I want to know, though. Do you think they're doing it because they believe that that's the right way to do it, or are they doing it out of like peer pressure to the other disciplines? Like, the other disciplines are doing this, so we need to do it too.
I can't speak to the why for each professor out there, but I can, my gut tells me it's because what their experience was. That's what I had in school. So I'm going to say that that's what it looks like. And I think that every person in front of you, like your faculty, have doctorate degrees. So you know what you needed, your skill sets to be effective in your doctorate program. But this is only 4% of you. So you as a faculty body are not representative of your student body. They're not all planning, nor do they need to. We don't need a world with everyone with a doctorate degree. I mean, by all means, we want to push and elevate folks. And, it's awesome. It opens up great fields. I mean, I'm running a doctoral program. I'm not bashing doctoral programs, but I don't think that every student needs that. I mean, we have that conversation even about, every student doesn't need a bachelor degree, right? But we're like hyper focused on making sure they're ready for that next level. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do any of that. What I'm saying is we need to build in choice. So that's going to be one of the elements, so that students that are going that track can have the choice and have the academic experiences that set them up well for that. But students who are not, don't need to be tortured every step of the way. And this is not unique to psychology. Every discipline could do an analysis like this and discover, oh my. I mean, it was an aha moment for me too, Hyro. I was like, God, what am I doing? I'm torturing my poor students. It's like, why is it we say this is so important? Where is this belief coming from? And that's where that positionality, where did I get this? Did I get this from my formal training? Did I get this from my peers? Did I talk to any industry people? Like, maybe that didn't shape anything for me. So we need to really think about that. And quite honestly, Excel skills would be much more valuable. You can still teach the skill set you're trying to teach with research papers or SPSS with brief reports and Excel. You can still do that. You don't need giant academic products to have giant cognitive work happening. In fact, it is much more challenging to write a one-page infographic or an executive summary than it is to write a 20-page paper. It's just a harder skill, but it's a more relevant skill to industry. So yeah, I'm glad you're getting excited about it. All right, let me do a quick time check. Okay, so we're going to talk about getting to know your students. And I'm going to make a educated guess that you folks are pretty much all over this. So I'm going to do this kind of quickly, but I do have a few videos that I'm sharing throughout of students. And I do have one that is a little bit longer. It's about 6 minutes. Most of the other ones I have are only a minute or two, but I like this one and I'm going to show it to you. So, so you're going to get to see it in a minute. And hopefully it'll be a different strategy that you haven't thought about. So again, we don't need to oh, I'm sorry, went too fast. We don't need to say a whole lot about this. I think you recognize the relationships you have with your students matter. The students are more motivated, more confident, they learn more when they feel connected to their faculty member. So you know that. I just want to kind of do a little nod to the research that's out there. I'm going to share some of the stories. You know, Jairo had mentioned my latest book, Keeping Us Engaged, where I have 50 students sharing stories. I can't share all 50 student stories with you, and I can't share their full stories. But what I can do is bring a couple of excerpts to you today. And this first one comes from Rosalind. So let me just take a moment to read to you what Rosalind says here. The first thing this professor had us do was create a nameplate and write on a note card some personal information like our name, major, minor, where we came from, what we wanted to do, a couple of fun facts about ourselves, why we were taking this class, and what we wanted to get out of it. Throughout the whole class, he kept his spirits high and a smile on his face. I can't tell you how many students talk about a smile when I ask for these stories from students. Some of the smallest things we do really make a big difference. Giving us a little primer on what the class was going to be about. At the end of class, he took a picture of each of us holding up our nameplates and collected the note cards. He told us it was his goal by the next class to get to know all of our names. I thought for sure he was joking. I knew he had at least 100 students in all his classes, but sure enough, by the next class, he came up to me, called me by name, asked me about my second major, business, and we talked about the applications of psychology to business, as well as my involvement on the swim team, one of my fun facts. I know that this sounds easy, like, oh, get to know their names. That's an easy thing to do. And it is not easy. I know this is incredibly time consuming and hard work for you to get to know all of your students. But we ask our students to show up and do incredibly time consuming, challenging tasks. We need to meet them where they're at. The more we know them, the better we'll be able to craft our assignments and ensure that we're creating things that are meaningful and culturally affirming to them. So getting to know their name is really critical. I want to share with you one of our doctoral students, Shadiqua, and in the video I'm going to share in just a moment. Oh, you know what? I got to stop sharing for a minute because I forgot to do the audio. So hang on a second. Let me share again and make sure I have the share sound. Okay, perfect. This student was co-presenting with me at a conference and talks about Pechacucha. So if you're not familiar with this, you're going to really enjoy it. And even if you are, you might enjoy the way in which he talks about it. So let me go ahead and play her video for you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Shadiqua Horge, and I am a student at New Jersey City University, the great school. I have the honor of being the first cohort of the Community College Leadership Doctoral Program. It is an honor to present today with one of our fearless leaders, Dr. Christine Harrington, and my peer, Amy Hankins. Unfortunately, I cannot be there, but fortunately, my son is graduating middle school today. But I thought it was very important to speak and present on keeping us engaged, what works. And I was introduced to this presentation style called Pekakucha. Yeah, Pekakucha. And I was introduced during our summer institute. So it was the first time the cohort one, we met, we got together, we learned a lot of different things during that institute. But on that first day, I was nervous, I was anxious, I was excited, I was unsure, I was motivated, I was all these different things. I don't know if you guys maybe remember your first day of, let's say, high school or college or all those different emotions. So we were introduced to Pekakucha. So what is that? It's a structured presentation. And what it is it's 20 by 20 rule. So you have 20 slides and you have 20 seconds per slide. So Pekakucha means chit chat or chat. And it started in Tokyo in 2003. And it was adopted as this alternate presentation style. And it was great for sharing a message and conversing. So you have images on each slide. It's sort of like an image, and the presenter speaks to the image. So it started out as sort of like a icebreaker, but it was much more than that. We were engaged, we got to know each other, we celebrated our differences, and we honored our culture, and we realized that we are on this journey together. And that really bonded us to each other, to our faculty members, and we started calling ourselves the OG of the program. So I'm just going to share a little bit with you. I only have 20 slides, but you can really see how to use it and how you learn about the person. And it's a deeper level of understanding it and being engaged with each other. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So keeping us engaged, students' perspective. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey. So if technology. Okay, there we are. This is my mom and I. I come from a single parent household. My mom is my best friend. And the other picture shows one Sunday morning getting ready for church. Our church is a big part of who we are. And we came from humble beginnings. We didn't have a lot. I didn't know it at the time. See, the slides go quickly. I was valedictorian of my high school, which was one of my goals. Wanted to buy a home. This is my home. Then I wanted to start a family. These are my two boys. And then I began my career journey. So you begin the ladder, the race, the hurdles, the ups, and things of that nature. And this is some of my students who graduated, who I'm very proud of. They're in the middle there. And I work at Essex County College. And everything seemed to be going great. Then came my diagnosis of cancer. But I did not let that deter me. I persevered and I'm in remission. And I continued on my career path. I was in academic affairs for 10 plus years. And then I transitioned recently to student affairs. So this is the bridge, the gap, bridging the two, the academic affairs and the student affairs side together. And it led me to New Jersey City University. And these are my family members, my peers, my support system. We have a group me app where we encourage each other, we talk to each other along this journey. And it started really during that summer institute. And during that summer institute, one of the great things that really resonated with me is this picture about equality versus equity and what the difference is. And that led me to my social justice advocacy work here at my college and also in my community. So I love quotes. I love to have post-its and I like having positive affirmations and things of that nature. So one quote that I love is, we may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to one human race. So thank you. That's just a little bit about me. But see how during those, I just had 10 slides, you gained so much information about me. You're engaged. You may want to know more, but so that's what it was. We were engaged. And I really appreciate that Summer Institute where we got to really know each other on a deeper level. Thank you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation.
So I love Shadiqua. Actually, she just defended her dissertation about a week or so ago. So congrats and hats off to her. Really, really awesome. I hope that you're thinking about this Pechakucha as a way to get to know your students. I know it would be a lot of time to take out but you could ask them to do it and post it online, or maybe just have 1 or 2 go each week. So it kind of sprinkle it into classes. There's a couple of different ways to, it doesn't take that much time, so you could do it, you can modify it down to 10 slides instead of 20 slides, 20 seconds each. It's not going to be that many minutes. And it's a really powerful way to get to know your students. Okay, let's shift over here. This study is just another one that highlights different ways we can get to know our students in more of a culturally affirming way. By, this particular, article was focusing on, how you could use a food item, ask them to bring it in. And in this particular scenario, the student shared, kind of what it was about this food choice. Thanks for answering that question, Tamika. I appreciate you throwing the Pecha Kucha in there. So really trying to give students an opportunity to share as they want to about, themselves in a different, more creative way. What they found in this study was that when they did this, the students really said they appreciated both their own identity and the complexity of that, as well as the similarities and differences between them and their peers. So one of the ways to culturally affirm and to promote some of that teamwork and collaboration, some of those other essential skills that industry partners are looking for, is to ensure that the folks start to feel a sense of community in the classroom. And the more they get to know about each other, it just fosters that in a much more significant way. So I know we all do different kinds of icebreakers, but if you can think about icebreakers that maybe build this in, these elements of sharing a little bit more about yourself versus just like introduce yourself or introduce your partner, but in a more of a deep way, can really add some value. This study is a cool one I want to share with you. And I know it was done with high school students, but I'm gonna just go out there on a limb and say I bet it transfers over to our sector pretty well. And what they did in this study is the students were randomly assigned to one of 2 conditions. Again, they were high school students. In both conditions, they filled out a getting to know you survey at the beginning of the year. And their teacher also filled out a getting to know you survey. But one group was told, here are 5 similarities you have based on your survey with your teacher. Another group was told, here are 5 similarities you have with another student at another school. And look at these amazing results. First of all, students who were in the group that got information that made them see how they were similar to their teacher, had better relationships with their teachers, had higher course grades, and hold on to your socks, folks. Look at bullet number 3. It closed an equity gap by 60%. So this especially made a difference for the Black and Latinx students. We need to reduce the distance between ourselves and our students. We need to help them see where we have our commonalities and similarities so that can build the connections. Of course, all this shouldn't just happen in class. If you're not familiar with the Persistence Project that Oakton Community College did, I loved reading about this. I think it was on Inside Higher Ed. Really good data here. Basically, what they did is they asked faculty to volunteer. Raise your hand if you're willing to meet with every one of your students in at least one of your classes for 15 minutes each. I know that's a big ask, but look at the data. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the overall fall-to-fall persistence rate at this college was 51%. If a student had just one faculty member who participated in the Persistence Project, that went up to 65.7%. Now, there are very, very few things we could do in 15 minutes to make that kind of a jump in terms of persistence. Now, I know it's not 15 minutes on the institution side, it's 15 minutes on the student side because the institution's has a lot of students per faculty member. I get that. But if you look on the right-hand side, it really made a significant difference for the Black students. Look at it, it was almost a 20% jump in persistence rate. So our connection to our students is one of the most important things that we can do. And this isn't assignment based, but it's about knowing our students is going to position us well to create assignments that are meaningful, that are culturally affirming, and that are matching the industries that they're interested in going into in terms of their expectations. So we need to know them in order to be able to do all the things we mapped out early on in today's presentation. So really important work happening there. And if anyone wants to, I actually have somebody raised their hand at the last time I was talking about this. I'd love to partner with folks around this. I'm going to pause for a moment and ask you to share some of the ways that you get to know your students. So I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds or so in the chat, just because we're a little tight on time with our late start, and I want to make sure I get through some of the other materials. So I'll pause for a moment so you can share some of those. In the essence of time, I'm not going to shout out some of the ones that I'm seeing there, but I do encourage you to put them there so that everyone can go ahead and download the chat and walk away with all these great ideas. So please do share. What I want to do next is talking about choosing the type of assignment. So, we talked briefly about this early on in today's presentation, that exams are fraught with issues, test bias, stereotype threat, and they may not be very indicative of the skills and knowledge they need in a position. So most fields are not using exams. Now, I know that there are fields that they need to be able to pass an exam in order to enter the field, like nursing. You need to pass the NCLEX. I get that. And I'm not saying we should abandon ship completely on exams. I am saying we should advocate maybe for different paths for folks so they don't have to pass those other kinds of exams and have different ways to assess their knowledge. But until we get there, we do need to support our students at being able to be successful at whatever paths are in front of them for their industry partner expectations. However, we over rely on the exam. It is like way too much, and it should not be the only way that we assess students. So I'm going to challenge you that if you're not in a field that has a mandatory test at the end, like the NCLEX, for you to really think about it and what you could do differently. And maybe the exam's not the only thing. You still need to prepare them for that, but it's not the only way to assess students. So here's an interesting data point from Singer-Friedman. What Singer-Friedman did is it was the same exact students in the same exact class. But when you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see there was a pretty significant equity gap between underrepresented marginalized students and non-underrepresented marginalized students. In fact, if you were from a non-URM, if you were part of that group, your average score was an 82, which is the most world's a B. If you were in an underrepresented minoritized group, you have an average score of 69, which is a D, which is not often passing the class. That is significant, folks, right? That's a pretty big deal. The same students, if you look on the left-hand side, there still was a discrepancy, but now we're talking about a B+ to an A- kind of scenario, much smaller discrepancy. So basically the key finding here is that students may, by the nature of the assignment you give, you may be either perpetuating equity gaps or helping students shine in ways that they are able to shine, more effectively. This is not the only study that highlights this. This was done pretty recently, published by Hobb and colleagues in 2021. They reviewed over 700 grades and 27 assignments in 8 different classes. What they found when they looked at the descriptive data alone, in every case, the URM students had lower final grades than the non-URM students. But it is important for me to acknowledge that these were not statistically significant differences, except for in one class. There were small sample sizes though, so it may be that there is, if we had a more robust group of students. It's hard to know. But what this basically says is that we want to be careful about the kinds of assignments we give to our students to ensure that we're not, just kind of continuing along in this, supporting equity gaps. We don't want to do that. We want to really be mindful of that. So research shows that if you give authentic assignments, again, remember, go back to that real world value, the meaning, all that stuff that you were chatting about in the early part of today's presentation, it's going to increase both student development, engagement and learning and skill development. So really important stuff. I want to have you listen to Caitlin, who shared an experience around sexual education curriculum. So here's Caitlin sharing her experience.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Ely, and I graduated from Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 2019. I majored in international studies and double minored in German and women's and gender studies. Muhlenberg is a liberal arts school, and I was lucky to take a wide variety of classes during my undergraduate career. My most memorable class by far was Psychology of Women taught by Dr. Kate Richmond. In this class, we discussed topics ranging from motherhood, defining gender, first sex, and race through a gendered lens. Our final project was to create new, engaging sexual education curricula for an assigned age group: children, adolescents, young adults, and the aging community. To begin brainstorming, our professor listed 9 topic areas above on a large piece of paper and taped them around the room. The class broke into groups and performed a round robin, writing down everything that came to mind when we read the listed topic area. For an example, under biological, we wrote terms such as the reproductive system, hormones, and puberty. And under the term power, we wrote words such as straight, white, and sexual assault. After 5 minutes, we rotated around the room to read ideas already written and added to that list as well. After collecting peer-reviewed sources and researching already approved sexual education lessons and curricula, we developed and presented our new curriculum to the psychology department of Muhlenberg. My group focused on aging, and we developed a curriculum that addressed menopause, femininity, motherhood, divorce, and sexual intercourse in the aging community. The curriculum for the children cohort, however, looked quite different and focused on reproductive system terminology and puberty. My professor allowed us to explore sexual education in a new way and thinking about what different populations need. The most engaging part of this project was knowing that this curriculum can not only be taught, but can help a lot of people understand their bodies, emotions, and feelings as they age. It was helpful knowing too that while this project was a part of the class, I was creating something that could be used to educate an underrepresented community in the sexual education world.
Students want their work to matter. So often the assignments that they do are for their faculty eyes only, right? So if we can help restructure some of this to be about, meeting some of the community needs and partnering, I think that really does add that authentic lens to it and increases student engagement and success. There's several studies that talk about helping students learn how to create infographics. What an important skill set this would be that can be utilized, that you could share then, create this and put it out there, whether it's on LinkedIn or they're sending it to a specific agency or organization, really getting creative at the kinds of assignments that we give to our students. So, if you can put in the chat some examples of things that you use instead of non-exam examples that might allow your students to kind of shine a bit in terms of, their background and how it might be utilized. For the sake of time, I'm going to have to keep going. So I know it's hard to type and write and listen at the same time. So I apologize. I don't know what to do. We can either just not chat, I guess. If you want to listen, don't feel obligated to write in the chat. I don't want you to not to hear. So, all right. I got some eager beavers who threw some stuff in there. Terrific. All right. We got a couple ideas flying. I love it. Okay. I do want you to hear from Caleb because this topic we're going to talk about is choice is one of the most central ones in terms of creating culturally affirming assignments. So let's hear from Caleb.
In graduate school, I took a course where the professor allowed her students to choose the types of assignments we completed as part of the class. This allowed us to pick assignments that fit with our strengths and future goals. For instance, I chose to complete a research paper because it was the best way for me to focus and share my thoughts and knowledge, and I could then use the paper as a writing sample for future applications or as the start of a publication project. Other classmates may have chosen to do a presentation or a creative media project because those assignments fit with their skills and goals. I really enjoyed having a choice in the type of assignment I completed because I felt more ownership of my learning and how I could demonstrate that learning to my professor.
It just is one of the best ways to help students engage and own. I love the word own it, right? It's mine now. I get to decide. So I strongly encourage you to think about where you can build choice into the curriculum. Here's an example from Kara, and I think many of us do this with like speeches or papers, but I want us to even go beyond that. Kara says, in one of my first assignments, we had to introduce ourselves through a brief speech. When I introduced myself and included that I'm also Mexican, Native American, and a lesbian, Professor Hankins didn't even blink an eye throughout the entire speech. Instead, my speech was met with smiles and enthusiasm for being so open and speaking in an eloquent way. From introductory speeches to persuasive and informative ones, we had free rein to explore topics and pick something we were passionate about. Giving students choice really does matter. These researchers, Pichot and Paulette, they did kind of the cafeteria style. You may have seen this. I have actually not used this style myself exactly in this way, but it was basically like a build your own, like you need X number of points. You might put it in different categories to make sure they line up with learning outcomes, but you can do these different kinds of assignments. And what you can see here is that students did pretty well on these assignments, but look at a couple of the comments on the right. I loved the a la carte type of assignments, helped with learning and not being bored. It also gave me a sense of control. I liked that I could pick assignments that fit how I like to learn. Creating games was fun, but creating podcasts was my favorite. Believe it or not, I actually learned more in this class than any of my other classes. So you see that the students really can have a pretty positive reaction to this opportunity. So I'm going to actually say don't worry about this choice one, because that I think is so important that giving it such a small amount of time is not going to do justice to it. So I'll ask Jairo to try to make sure you get to talk about choice when you have your follow-up dialogue. Structure is also important. I think I said before, the more structure you have, the better it is for all students. If you don't provide enough structure and guidance, you're going to leave many students behind. Now, we do need to navigate that with the industry expectations. If they're not giving structure, we shouldn't be so forceful around it, but we do want to provide the path for students to be successful. So that's kind of key. Here is one example from Michael, who said, every single assignment was laid out. The date of each topic was covered, was labeled. The syllabus presented links with additional resources. Sharing clear expectations is key to engaging students on the first day. If a professor presents an incomplete or vague syllabus on the first day, they're destined to get a similar lack of effort from students in their assignments. So, again, when you take pride in the document that you give to them, they know you're trying to support them and help them. That's a whole nother talk, but I got a lot of data on syllabus and what you can do in that space. You want to be transparent. Wilkelman, talks about sharing the purpose, the task, and the criteria for the syllabus. This is a great way to provide that structure. And what they found, and they did a couple of different studies. In this particular one, this was a pretty broad scale one with over 1,800 students at 7 different colleges. But students where assignments were transparent and did that purpose and giving them the guidance on how to do the assignment and what excellence looked like, they had higher levels of confidence, more sense of belonging, and a mastery of skills that employers are valuing. So looking at, connecting information for a variety of sources, applying knowledge to different contexts, the writing skills, they felt like the transparent assignments helped them develop those skills better. Retention rates are also higher in classes with transparent syllabi. So again, we're paving the way. Don't leave it a mystery. If you want to support your students, tell them what your expectations are. And sharing grading criteria is positive, not just for students, but also for faculty. In this study, McKinney found that students were less likely to ask questions, perceived feedback as more helpful, had more positive things to say about you on your teaching evaluations, and less negative comments about the assignments. So those are all the student outcomes. But faculty, if you look at the bottom part, faculty found it much more satisfying to teach when they were, providing more details around the grading criteria. And they reported that it reduced their grading time by almost 6.5 hours per week. So it takes a lot of front end work to give all those details. But when you do that, it pays off. It saves you time in the long run. So I know we only have like a couple minutes left. I'm going to just share a few other things I want to highlight with you. I think I have until about 10:40, right, Jairo? It's 10:40 now. Oh, Lord. I got like 2 minutes or so. I'm gonna try to fly by some of this the best I can. Sorry, we got that late start today. So encouraging collaboration is also important. You identified that as a industry desired skill. Edwin talks here. He says the professor assigned a group project that required students to research an organization. But before starting it, the professor had to share what type of career they wanted to pursue, and then they were placed in a team based on that career interest. They also had to complete modules to learn interpersonal skills that would be helpful for teamwork. Each team member completed the modules, then they could elect a leader, assign roles, and agree on rules for the project. This is a great example of group work really working when we provide structure and support for it. Now, here's the bad news. In the community college sector, we're pretty awful at this. So we know that it works, but according to Sense data, 68% of students said that they never worked with a classmate outside of class, and 22% said never even during class. This is unacceptable. We have to do better. And I know I'm one of the first to say, oh my God, sometimes the group work drives me crazy and it's not great. And lots of students calling you, but it's just not, it's not okay. Our students need these skills. All right, Hyra, you have to tell me, I got like, can I go 3 more minutes? Or do I have to stop and I can come back? What do you want me to do?
No, go for it. I guess
all right, I'm going
I'll
with
say
3 more
this.
minutes.
There are some people that need to leave, and I understand that just because of time. I put the link to the post assessment in there. If you don't mind filling it out before you leave, if you have to leave, if you could stay on, let's stay on until Dr. Harrington can finish.
Okay, I'm going to try to do 3 more minutes. I'm going to go as fast as I can. And then, of course, I'm happy to come back and dialogue with you afterwards. So scaffolding. Tara's identified an equity issue that I don't know that we have all thought about. I know we're thinking equity all the time, right? But often it's race, gender, first gen. This is about treating all undergraduates unfairly. Basically, the claim here is that if you're a graduate student or a professional, you get more opportunities to learn from feedback than you do if you're an undergraduate student. Most undergraduate students get a once and done opportunity. You get 1 shot at a paper, 1 shot at an exam, 1 shot at a presentation. We give you feedback, we cross our fingers, and we hope that one day you'll take that feedback the next time you have some kind of other similar project. But we don't give you an opportunity to redo it that semester immediately, which would be the most effective learning experience ever. So now I know why we don't do it, because there's this many of them and this many of us. And after I'm done doing a whole big stack of papers, I don't want to do it again the next day. I'm sure you're in the same boat. I know why it happens, but there's ways we have to do this in a more creative way. So our English faculty are really great at doing the drafts and quick checks. You don't have to look at a full draft. You can look at an outline. You can look at just do a citation check. Are they getting the right kinds of sources? Are they basing their claims on accurate information? You can do some things that don't take that long that would ensure that they're spending their time in a more productive way. Kayla in this example really just talked about how much it helped her when her faculty member broke it down each step of the way and they got feedback. And look at this word that she uses at the end. It helped us gain confidence and skills. So having those checkpoints along the way is a really powerful way to help students learn. Dower and Murphy did an assignment a day. And you can see here that the students in the assignment a day, that's the darker red bar on the left, had a higher exam performance in a computer class than students who had a one time a week assignment. So again, getting feedback along the way to see whether or not you're on track is a very powerful strategy. So we can do that in a couple of ways. On the right-hand side is the English faculty way we talked about, getting, checkpoints in, checking their sources, a draft, an outline, things of that nature. We can also do it in a no stakes to high stakes way. Like, let's do it in class together. Let's do some low stakes where it doesn't count against you. So it's feedback only and not a grade. So it doesn't harm you at the end of the semester in terms of your grade. And this is a really great way to ensure that the grade tells the story of whether students will achieve the learning outcomes at the end of the semester. Because if you get penalized for not getting it right on your first shot, let's say you get an F on your first assignment and an A on the last one, the average is a C, like their grade is a C. That's not telling the story. I got an A by the end. It should be an A, so we need to figure out if our grading structures are also telling that story. Linking assignments is a creative way to do it so that you don't have to necessarily grade that entire stack of papers again, but maybe you have papers that you're giving feedback on that then they use as their base for the presentation, so that they're immediately taking your feedback, restructuring it and processing it for the next part of the assignment, which might be the presentation. So building in those checkpoints, but linking assignments together is another creative way to build feedback into the process. I have to share this one because I don't know if you see who the student is, but you may recognize the name. At least I do. This is my boy. He's got the same last name as me. And he would not do a video. You know, moms only have so much power, but I got him to do a written contribution to the book. So here's what Ryan said. In this course, one of the major assignments was a group project that included a presentation and a paper. About halfway through, the paper portion was due. The professor graded the papers by the following class. When he returned them, he shared how we would be spending the entire class reviewing our papers. The professor then spoke to the whole class about the requirements, and he told us we'd be getting a separate grade for the second revised submission. Knowing that this was going to be graded, we immediately became more interested in the notes and the feedback that the professor had written on the return papers. The professor then went to each group, spent about 5 to 10 minutes discussing it while the others were working on their presentation. If it matters, make it count. So count revisions as part of your grade. Give class time for revision processes. Feedback is one of the most powerful ways to learn. So it's not just the assignments you create, but the way that you structure them. Do you have a piece of it? Like maybe the last 10% even is on how do you, what's your reaction to the feedback, or what would you do differently, or something that they actually would revise. Giving them those chances really do make a difference. Obviously, as you give them their feedback, you want to encourage a growth mindset by emphasizing effort and strategies so that they end up putting forth more effort. And I'm going to skip this last
fun
student,
stage.
she's really great, but I know that we are totally out of time. So I'm going to leave you with this call to action to reflect on your positionality, to reevaluate outcomes, evaluate your current assignments using the lenses we discussed today, consider alternatives to traditional assignments, choice, structure, scaffolds, and please keep this dialogue going. This is not a one-time kind of scenario. You have to keep it going. We don't have time for our takeaways, but I know you have a big action plan you have to work on. And here are some of my books. And again, my website where you can get a lot of the resources. So thank you for bearing with me for a few extra minutes. I really appreciate it. And actually for sticking around for the first half hour. So thank you for all of that. And I wish you all the best and welcome the opportunity to continue the dialogue.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Harrington. And again, we just really appreciate your flexibility and, just being patient and trying to, extending us that grace to do this. And so again, wonderful information. I'm pretty sure everybody on here was able to take away something, if not more than one thing. And so we really appreciate you doing this for us. Again, if you could, please fill out the post-assessment for us. It'd be greatly appreciated. We like to collect that data so we can assess ourselves and figure out how we can improve outside of technology and things of that nature. So, but technology is one of those things that we definitely need to assess and figure out. Okay, so maybe we need to have more backup plans, So again, just something to think about. But please do that for us. And so again, we'll try to figure out another way to try to engage with folks because we didn't get the chance to do the breakout rooms, and we apologize for that. But hopefully, again, you were able to get some things out of here to really help you do some self-reflection and figure out how you can, better serve students and, just overall become a better faculty member as we continue to help students learn, but then also figure out the best ways to get them into the workforce. So again, thank you, Dr. Harrington. Dolores, I don't know if you want to say anything before we get off.
Just amazing, highly informative. And I do appreciate what you said about structure, but being flexible and helping students to take ownership of their learning and ownership of their own assessments of gauging where they are progressing in the course. So just great information. And we did have someone to share about making a request for a link. I think you may have shared earlier, Dr. Harrington. So yes, or maybe Cairo for the assessment, but we did have a request for a link.
Yeah, okay.
But in the chat, folks are saying thank you tremendously for the information and just impactful presentation.
Thank you.